Hi, I'm Yvette Ponce from Lakeview High School.
And I'm Connor McLaughlin from Central High School. Welcome to SAISD News.
We start off this week at Rita Elementary, where students have been learning about the scientific process in a unique way.
Instead of simply performing a traditional science experiment, 5th grade students in Mrs. Noble's class were asked to work backwards through the process. Students were presented with a picture of an investigation, and they had to figure out what question was being asked in the experiment. They also had to determine what variables were being tested and decide if the investigation was valid or not. If the investigation was not valid, they had to improve the steps to make it valid. After completing their project, the students presented their findings to the class.
The reason why I did this is because they're getting ready to design their own experiment, testing the effects of force on an object. So before I had them do that, I wanted them to actually make sure they understood the process and the steps in an investigation. They had to know that that question drives the investigation. So by doing this, they had to think it through from a different standpoint. So by doing this, I think they'll be able to come up with some pretty good experiments that they design on their own.
We now visit a 3rd grade classroom at Lamar Elementary, where students are beginning to learn about multiplication and division.
Students rotated through various stations where they worked with different representations to help them learn how to problem solve and understand their math facts. Students used concepts like grouping and sharing to understand the concepts of multiplication and division.
In Station 1, they're working on their facts and using counters to figure out the products of each one. And Station 2, they were working on dividing, grouping, sharing, representing that for each group, they get a fair share. We have another station working on multiplying, working with arrays and grouping. And so it's just another representation using the egg carton and beads, giving them more hands-on manipulatives to work on. And then we're also working on 2 groups using functions and tables. And so one of the groups actually has a function machine where they're able to figure out inputs and outputs. And they're using real-world examples to realize that things come in multiples, and that's how they get their input and outputs. And then we have growing patterns that also can be seen using a function table.
Ms. Walt said that using hands-on manipulatives like this really helps to reinforce the concepts students are learning, and she has seen tremendous progress in her students since beginning this unit. November 11th was Veterans Day, and Lee Middle School held a ceremony to honor those who have served in the armed forces.
During the ceremony, the school choir sang the national anthem, and the band and orchestra played patriotic music as members of each branch of the military stood to be honored. Students provided patriotic readings, and a slideshow displayed photos of students' family members who have served in the military. Assistant Principal Aaron Oliver, who has served in the Marines and the Army National Guard, also spoke to students about the importance of service and sacrifice, and living their lives in such a way to honor those sacrifices.
I want the kids to understand just how important the rights that we have are. As a history teacher, we talk a lot about the God-given rights that we have as a nation, as people of this nation, and I always point out, I said, over 1 million Americans have died in service to their country, defending the flag and protecting the freedoms that we have. And so we honor them, we honor all those others who have served their nation and who have given of their time to go in harm's way to protect us.
Lee Middle School also recently held its own election to coincide with the national presidential election.
On Tuesday, November 6th, students cast their votes for president in the school's mock election. The goal of the election was to help students understand how the Electoral College works. The school was divided up into states based on history classes. Population figures from those states were used to determine how many electors each class had. Rex Stevenson explained some of the activities students did to prepare for the election.
We looked at the platforms of both parties, and we compared the platforms and talked about, what ideas do you believe in and which party seems to fit with the things that you would want to happen in our country. We had the kids create campaign posters which showed who they were supporting. We discussed this in class, discussed the different issues that were going on. We watched excerpts from all the debates after they had occurred. We discussed that in class. We tried to keep an open forum so that kids could express their own opinions about things and talk about what each candidate was talking about, what they stood for.
And that does it for this episode of SAISD News.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.